Hi, my name is Steve Shikatans. This will be my kind of like my testimony. So, when I was about 12 years old in school, I was labeled as learning disabled, which is kind of, I guess, on the borderline of being mentally retarded. And I was put in a special education class. And part of the problem was I wasn't doing my schoolwork because at that time, during school, I had such a vivid imagination. I would just imagine I was anywhere but in school. I didn't really like school. So it kind of went on that way until I was 15. And then at 15, the summer between age 14 and 15, I was just out of 8th grade. I got a blockage in my intestine, and so I couldn't keep anything down, and this went on all summer, and I finally got down. I got down to where I was 80 pounds, and I felt that I was going to die. So at 15, I had turned 15, but 15 years old, I wrote out my will. I had a stereo and a bed, and of course I gave those to my friends and stuff like that. But 15. Most 15-year-olds never probably had to write out a will, but I felt like it was to the point where it was the end. So I was in the hospital room, and my mom was just a wreck. I mean, she knew especially after I wrote out the will, I just didn't feel like that I was going to live anymore. And so she demanded one more test that the doctors didn't want to give, and that's when this test, she saved my life, because this test showed the blockage that I had. And the next day they did surgery, and then on the surgery table, I was so weak that I actually had an out-of-body experience. I'll go over that some other time. But anyway, to go on, I got done with that. But before I was in the operation, they had pumped me full of drugs, and so I actually became addicted to drugs from all the drugs they were experimenting, thinking I had everything but what was really wrong with me during that time. So after that, I started smoking pot, drinking, and then eventually got on harder and harder drugs, and then got into high school, and I was just partying all the time, and it wasn't good. I was falling apart. Yeah, I was dying on the inside, but all I wanted to do was party, and that was everything. And I started taking this one pill. It was a friend told me about. It was called Marasines. It's a car sickness pill, or a pill that you take on a boat or an airplane for motion sickness. And we discovered that if we took enough of them, it caused us to hallucinate. And so, I was getting up in the middle of the night, seeing things all over the place, and it was bad. I feel bad for my parents at the time. They had to deal with me. But anyway, I finally ended up in a padded room, just kind of like you see on TV, a white padded room with a camera on me and nothing but a bed inside of it. And that's where I found myself in. It was like January 1st, 1984. That's how long ago that was. I was 18 years old at the time, and here I am in this padded room, facing having to go to some type of a treatment. And in that room that night, a voice came to me, and I kind of had a vision of a path, and there was a road. There was like a fork in the road, and there was one road going on the same route that I went, and I sort of had a vision of where I'd end up, and I was actually dead in a gutter. That was the vision. And then the other way was just a little bit more unclear, but I had to stop using drugs, and that's the last time I've had a drink or used any kind of drugs was in the beginning of 1984, which was my senior year in high school. I was failing miserably. I was basically, they gave me nearly no hope of graduating that year, and I actually kind of wanted to give up and quit, but I made up my mind that not only did I not want to quit, that I would do whatever it took so that I could graduate that year. And I guess that's when I first found out about this stuff, the stuff I've later learned in Think and Grow Rich, and some of the other books. Think and Grow Rich is probably the best self-help books I've ever read. It's one of the first ones, but I've certainly read and listened to a ton of them. But at that time, it was just a decision that I'm going to get through school and I'm going to graduate. So I put my nose to the grindstone. I was up every night until 2 and 3 in the morning. Didn't miss a day of school. Did everything I was supposed to do, and ended up graduating with A's and B's, which was an accomplishment for me because I still had to fight this urge to use my imagination. I had to stop that a little bit to focus on getting the work done so that I could get through school. Well, anyway, I got through it, and it was a good day. And I'm graduating, and we got through that, and during my drug years, I had a desire to go into business, and I wanted to own a business. So out of school, I got into I found a chimney sweep business, and I became a chimney sweep, and started a chimney sweep business. Built it up over about 18 months. I'm 19 years old, and 18 months I had an income of about $500 a day, and I had it all set up to where I didn't work at all. I had all this free time. I love to work out, so I was working out 4 to 6 hours a day, and ended up deciding I just had too much time on my hands, and actually for me at that point in my life was a curse. Because, it seems like a dream. Like, man, I got all this money. I got people that, everything's going great. But I went and I decided to buy a health club, but I knew nothing about that industry or business and didn't take the time to learn it, and ended up going into heavy debt. And make a long story short, ended up losing basically everything. I lost the chimney business. I sold it to keep this health club going. And then eventually lost everything. I lost everything I owned. I sold everything I had, including my bed. All I had was clothes, and that was it. And during about it was about a year period, I borrowed money from all my relatives. So I owed $100,000, didn't have a job, and was just completely broke, but I owed $100,000 and didn't own anything. I owned absolutely nothing. I borrowed a vehicle, an old 1969 Ford Bronco from my dad, and so I had a borrowed vehicle that I was using. And at the time I was living in their house, and so didn't even have a place of my own. So anyway, I had a chance to go to California. What I didn't say is that I live in Casper, Wyoming, right in the middle of Wyoming, next to a mountain. But I had a chance to go to California and go to a football game, actually. And I made a decision that I wasn't going to quit business. But I started reading a lot of different books, and some other books by Napoleon Hill. I read a lot of his stuff at that time, and it made up my mind that I needed to do something to learn how to better deal with people and understand people better. And kind of asked around, and I heard about going door to door selling and just knocking on people's doors and selling them stuff. And everybody I knew, my friends, my family, everyone said that was crazy. That's the worst idea you've ever had. So, when I was reading these books, basically they were telling me, the crowd is wrong. Whatever, do the exact opposite of what everybody else is doing. So I thought that's what I'm going to do. So for the next year, I made things. I was pretty good with making stuff out of wood. So I made paperweights and did all kinds of stuff like that. And I sold things door to door. And I ended up hiring people, and I'd have one guy on one side of the street, and I'd be on the other side, and we knocked on doors. I did that for a year. Didn't really make much money, but I had a lot of doors slammed in my face. a lot of people yelling at me, but then I sold a lot of stuff too, and I learned how to not take things personally, and I think that was one of the best learning experiences. If you want to learn how to talk to people and deal with people and get over fears, door-to-door selling is a very good way to do it. And I was highly motivated, at the time. This is in the mid 80s. So at that time, maybe 1986, 85, 86, the economy was really bad. There wasn't any jobs, so I was just grateful to be able to do something. And I did earn money. There was times when I'd make $300 or $400 in a day just selling this stuff I would make in the shop. I painted curbs on sidewalks. I mean, did whatever, but did all this with door to door, and that it was a lot of people. I got criticized. I had people that said, you should be out, get a real job and all that, but it was because I had this dream about owning a business, and I still wanted to do that, even though I lost everything that was hard and tough. I didn't give up. And so anyway, I always remembered how I really loved the chimney sweeping. So I had helped a friend of mine get into chimney sweeping during all this time, and he joined the Army, and he decided he wasn't going to do it. So I arranged to buy the equipment that I had sold him, and that's how I started my second chimney sweep business, which is actually the same one that I own today. And at that time, it was called Black Magic Chimney Sweeps. And I did, and how I didn't have any money, and I owed money. I was still paying off the money from going into debt. And between this time, I also got married and had a child. So I was highly motivated to work at that time. So I took the chimney sweep business, and oh man, this is funny. So I'd helped my friend get the business. He didn't do anything with it. I took it and started going door to door again, and I didn't have any money to advertise or anything, so I just went door to door and asked people. I said, I give you a free inspection. I had a flashlight, and so I'd give them a free inspection, and if their chimney needed cleaning, I'd have them get down and look up the chimney and say, look, this chimney's dirty and it needs to be cleaned. And then I'd give them a discount or coupon, and they'd have me clean their chimney. And that's how this thing started. And then I reinvested the money and back into it. And then when got enough ahead, I started advertising. And now today, I believe I've made over 150 television commercials. I write and produce my own TV commercials. So I put a few of them on YouTube. But anyway, it was all to get there. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit. So I was married, started building the business, and we eventually started selling fireplaces, wood stoves, pellet stoves, anything to do with fireplaces, chimneys, any chimney repairs, all that kind of stuff. And so I did that for the last I did that for about 15 years. I had another child, so our kids were getting to be teenagers. And then it came in 2008. And actually, 2008 was a really bad year for business, but our business was just booming. And I spent a lot of time building this business and not so much working on my marriage. And so we just couldn't see eye to eye, and we ended up getting divorced, and it was really bad. So at this point, it's 2008. Once the divorce was final, I ended up with about $1.8 million in personal debt, and then at that time the business owed about $1 million in business debt. So now, not quite, about $800,000. I had about $2.4 million in debt between personal and business, and that's where I was then. So we got divorced. It was horrible. But I ended up with the house, but I also had this huge house payment, and I had 2 dogs. Well, about 4 months later, in a period of 2 months, both my dogs died. And I know this is going to sound like a bad country song, but both my dogs died. And then a year later, I get audited by the IRS, and there was some stuff that we had done wrong, and I was audited for several years going backwards, and ended up owing about $250,000 to the IRS, and I still owed all this other money, this millions of dollars in business debt and personal debt. But the one thing, I had a cabin up on our mountain, or a house. It was more like a house, and it was completely paid for. Well, then in 2012, a fire came through and burned the house to the ground, and it just seemed like nothing was going to get better. And I wasn't even sure. I was numb most of the time, and I think that's when I started to really get faith, and just be like, you know what? I don't know how. I can't in my own power get through this, so you've got to help me. Infinite intelligence, God, I Jesus, you have to help me. And it wasn't it wasn't like, I know that it's like everybody as a believer when they're in the middle of the war. When you're in the trenches and the bullets are flying over your head, everybody's a believer. And it was like that, but it wasn't. I mean, I do believe that that God brought me through this, and I guess that's the faith part. And I couldn't see how I could ever get out of it. I mean, there wasn't enough money. I mean, at the time I had 8 or 10 employees. And it seems like and then we just get to where things are going good and someone would quit, and then I had to end up working 12, 15 hours a day of hard labor, and it just seemed like it would never get better. And it also didn't seem like I was getting anywhere. It seemed like, because I think the IRS's bill I couldn't pay anything on it. It was growing by $1,200 every month that went by. So I decided, all right, I got to do something. And I had this big house. I had a 5,000 square foot house. I'm living in it by myself. I had 2 acres. I had a dream home, really. I had a creek in the backyard. This place was incredible. But anyway, I decided it needed some remodeling, and I owed money on it and everything. I was barely able to make the mortgage payments. But I went ahead and I went through, and I just worked day and night, worked the business, and then every spare minute I remodeled the house. Got it completely done, sold it. And that's when things really started it took a year to sell it, but once that house sold, it finally turned, and things I started seeing it. I made enough money with that. I didn't have any money left over, but I made enough to pay the IRS off, which was the number one debt I needed to get rid of. And then that also took care of the mortgage. So one sale, I ended up getting a big part of that debt paid off. And then I slowly kept paying off, the personal debt that I had to the ex-wife, and to in the meantime I had a house in Mesa, Arizona, and I had to sell that too, but I sold it to my parents with the understanding I could buy it back at some later date. So at any rate, now it's about 2015 or 16, and I'm getting down. Well, actually, it's 2020 now. In 2018, I finally got the debt. There was $1 million debt. I made the last payment on that in the middle of 2018, and at that point I managed in all that between time. I managed to pay off all of the debt for the business. So the business was completely debt free, including all the we have 20 service vehicles, and we've got so I got 20 vans, basically trucks, stuff like that we use in our business. And then we've got tools, like hundreds and probably in the thousands of different kinds of tools, vacuums, everything you can imagine. All that's paid for. And then all of our inventory, I think our inventory comes to somewhere in the $1 million range, but that's all paid off. And so I have absolutely zero, and the building is paid off. All the warehouse is paid off. And so all that got paid off by about the middle of 2018. So then I decided, all right, I'm going to buy that house back from my parents. So I just put my nose to the grindstone for all of 2018, and by the middle of 2019, I'd paid off that house. So I own the house now, completely debt free. I'm completely debt free, and And this has all come from applying the principles that are in Think and Grow Rich, and listening to YouTube videos of Bob Proctor. There's just people like that. There's just all kinds. Earl Nightingale is one that you can listen to. The greatest secret in the world. A man becomes what he thinks about, and I, it's Dale Carnegie. It's not just the fact that I just read a book and then it magically happens. I mean, that's not what it is. You have to read. You have to leave. This has to become a lifestyle. I still, to this day, I'm completely debt free. I could probably retire and never work a day in my life, and I'd be okay financially now. And it was bad. It was hard. I mean, I'd never dreamed. 10 years ago, I couldn't even fathom where I'm at today. I mean, it just seemed like it would never happen. And but one thing I did is I never stopped learning. I never stopped trying to, in the morning I get up and I listen to this stuff. I listen to positive teaching and I learn personal development. Dale Carnegie, the Dale Carnegie course I took the Dale Carnegie course, and I mean, it's learning how to deal with people. How to not take things personally. I mean, it's just all that stuff. But it can't be just, I read one book and then it's all better. It's not like that. It's like a completely, it's not what you do once in a while. It's the habits that you do every single day. So every day I'm pouring into this stuff. I'm listening. I mean, I don't know how many, and another key I think to it is I'll listen to something over and over again. There's a guy named Joe Rodriguez that's on, and he makes these, he reads a book and then he does like a book outline. And the guy is kind of monotone, but I really love listening to this guy. And so, man, but I'll listen to he might, like he did one, he actually did a book report. It's kind of like a book report on YouTube, but he did one on Think and Grow Rich. And I must have listened to that 15, 20 times. And so, and most of his stuff I'll listen to at least 2 or 3 times. And I guess the other key is what is like today, back to the health, I let myself go. I know I owned a health club and I worked out all the time, but I really let myself go. So 6 months ago, I just decided that I can never take a day off from exercise. I do it 7 days a week, every single day. And I made a goal to do 1,000 push-ups a day and 1,500 crunches, which actually about 2 months ago, well, maybe 6 weeks ago, I achieved it, and I've been doing it ever since. So it's been 6 weeks I've been doing 1,000 push-ups a day, and I got to tell you, I still don't like doing them, but it's one of those things where you do it anyway. So I get up in the morning. Wake up at 5 in the morning. Most people are like, oh, there's no way I could do that. And I mean, I used to think that. So I'd wake up. I always would wake up a little early, maybe 20 minutes early. So I'd have maybe an extra 10 or 15 minutes after I got ready. And it just, so I was always show up to work at least 15, 20 minutes early, maybe half an hour. But, it really didn't give me time to do anything. So as busy schedule that I have, and I do a lot of different stuff. And, I really enjoy making and producing TV commercials. I just love doing them. I love thinking up the concepts and stuff. But exercise is so important. So I'm in the habit. I get up, I ride my exercise bike every single morning. I just purchased a rowing machine because I know I don't like rowing. I don't like being in a rowboat. That has no appeal to me whatsoever. But a rowing machine, for some reason I just love rowing machines. So I bought this rowing machine, and I really enjoy doing that. And I really enjoy my stationary exercise bike. I ride it every single day. Matter of fact, I had to buy another one because I wore one out. I didn't buy a super expensive one, but and I'm not bragging. I've just enjoyed doing that. But then the push-ups, oh man, I do not like doing my push-ups, and right now I'm searching for some mental activities that'll get me to help myself think that, oh, I love doing push-ups, but I haven't got there yet. But the reason I do that is because I know that there will be a price to pay for not doing this. And, as I'm older, I'm 54 years old now. And so it's like a lot of years have gone by. But man, talk about blessing. It is all worth it. I mean, don't give up. If there's anything I can say in this message is just don't give up. Don't give up. Just keep going. When times seem so tough. I mean, when I was in debt, my dogs died, and and it seemed like the IRS audited me. It's like everywhere I turned, something else would go wrong, and it was so hard to keep my mind on, I can get through this. I had to tell myself, you can get through this. You can do this. Just take one more step, or I can get through this. And sometimes it's like, all right, I just got to get through 10 minutes, or sometimes an hour, But the good news is that all these pressures came, and I didn't go back and I smoked cigarettes. I mean, it did all this bad stuff, and I didn't go back to any of that. And then I think the other key is fasting. Now I do it every year at the beginning of the year. I'm now, this is tough too. I do a 21-day fast at the end of the year, and this year in 2020. I started it. I usually start on the 1st, but we had a family party down in my house in Mesa. So my whole family, my sisters and nephews and nieces and aunts and uncles and my mom and dad, everybody was there. We all ate like really, we ate garbage, and I felt so terrible. I'm not used to eating that ice cream and cakes and all the stuff that I don't normally eat, and so I felt terrible. So on the 26th, or the day after Christmas, we were driving back with my daughter and my granddaughter, and I decided at that point, I'm starting my fast now. So I started a little early this year, and then I got into it, and I love coffee. I am a coffee. Oh, give me coffee. I don't put any sugar or cream in it, but I love just old black coffee. And so I was drinking coffee the first 2 days, and then I was watching some videos that about fasting, and a lot of people were talking about water fast, and I hadn't done one of those before. This will be this year. It was like my 4th or 5th 21-day fast in the beginning of the year to start the year off, and clears your mind and everything. But I decided this year to go on a water fast and not drink coffee, and it was hard, but it was so good this year. And I try to at least once a month I go on a 1 or 2 day fast. It clears your system out. It gives you the mental clarity that is just amazing. I would encourage anyone to do that. It just it not only cleanses the body, but the mind and spirit. And you can just if there's a way to get close to God, I think it's in fasting. And but there's voices inside. I'm a person that eats emotionally as well. I gave up drugs and smoking and drinking and all that stuff, and sometimes eating I'll eat if I'm feeling a certain way or whatever. But and I've just loved spending this time. I'm like I said, I make TV commercials, but I don't feel that I'm real good at making these types of things, but I do have a real desire to help. And if you're in a spot right now where you're just hurting, and it seems like everything in your life has gone back, reverse, and you're just in a really bad spot right now, and have hope. I've been there. It isn't fun, but don't go off the deep end. Give yourself a break. It'll hang in there. Sometimes just go another day. Really think about what you're doing. I really understand, and I care about you, and I just want to encourage you that you can do this. You have greatness inside of you. You have no idea how much the Creator loves you, and that greatness it'll come out. Just hang in there. It'll all work out. So where I'm at right now, I'm so grateful I went through all those hard times, because I have no fear of. We have this coronavirus, and everybody, we're shut down. I'm doing literally half. I'm doing probably a third of what we normally do financially in this company, and I've not laid one person off. Everything is fine. Matter of fact, I've given everybody raises, and it's just the position that I've been put in. I don't need things anymore. I heard somebody say, we have no body, so we're nobody, and you need no thing, so we're nothing. And it's just, if you stop and meditate on that and think about that, I'm nobody and I'm nothing. I don't need anything, and I don't need anybody. And it's just it's so much freedom, and you've got this inside of you. You're gonna make it, and I don't know, maybe I'm talking to somebody out there, and if I can come through, and I'm talking to you right now, you can do it. You're gonna be fine. Everything is gonna work out, and know that if no one else cares, I do. So I love all of you, and thank you. And I'm not sure where this video is going to go. Maybe I've made this message for myself, and maybe I'll have to put it on. I'll have to put it out there somewhere. Sorry about the quality. I'm kind of recording it with my phone. I just got my hand out here, and I'm just recording myself. So I know I'm a little funny looking, but I am truly happy. I'm excited. I'm excited to be alive today. I love getting up early. So anyway, back to the getting up. So I get up at 5 a.m. I get up earlier. Somebody said that, oh man, I couldn't get up earlier. I have to get that sleep. And he said, just sleep faster. And so that's where I started sleeping faster. And so I just wake up. I do the workout. I'm in the habit of it now. I don't even think about it, except for the push-ups. I don't like the push-ups, so I'm hopefully going to get there someday. But get up early, hang in there, don't give up,